Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Glad and excited to be back. I hope we are all glad and excited to be here. For those who are new to this place, you're so much welcome. For those who are coming back, thank you so much. Thank you for always coming. Thank you for always interacting with our talks. You're so much welcome. And for those who have not subscribed, kindly consider subscribing. And today is another day that we here to just have a talk as usual and just get to discuss about something that concerns about our lives. And today we'll be talking about God's timing. And when we get to talk about God's timing, I want us to base it on scriptural teachings, life experiences, and such like. Because one thing we gotta get to know is that, and I always keep on saying, is the life we live in is so spiritual. And everything that happens in this life, in one or another, if you get to like dig into it deeper, it has a lot of spiritual attachment in it. And when we become vigilant and when at times we get to have discernment about the life we're living in, discernment of things that at times happen to us, we'll get to realize that everything that happens into our lives is very spiritually related. What do I get to like mean when I'm saying this is, from our biblical teachings, anytime we ever go before God in prayers, we usually get to learn that there are three answers that God gives us. The first one is an yes, the second one is an await, and the third one is a no. I now want us to base on this answer that is called wait, because most of the times that it becomes hard for us to wait. Yes, we have gone, we have prayed God to do for us this, to do for us this, and at times waiting becomes hard. At times, depending on God and just being hopeful and being patient becomes a bit tricky, becomes a bit hard. That's what I want us to talk about, waiting upon the Lord, God's timing. And there's this phrase that we always keep on saying so casually, that we say that God's timing is always the best. So one thing that we can get to agree about is there is always a God's timing, which as well as we always say is that God's timing, it's not like our own timing. God's time, He never comes early, He never comes late. He comes at His own appointed and given time. And most of the times that at times we want God to come early. Most of the times we feel like God has overstayed. Most of the time is when we feel like it wasn't the best time. You always be like, God, I think it's now. This is the time that you should be doing this. This is the time that you should come for me. This is the time that you should help me in this issue. And I don't know whether we ever get to sit back and just wait upon God's time. Just wait upon that appointed God's time. And I don't know whether in your own life experience there's a time that you have ever waited upon the Lord. And to some point, you felt like God has really overstayed. You felt like, if God, you don't come today, I don't think I'll be able to face tomorrow. If God, you don't come through for me today, I don't think it's possible for even seeing tomorrow. It happens. And even we get to read of so many stories in the Bible of people who waited upon the Lord. And at times it wasn't easy. Because at times waiting upon this God's time, it's never easy. Because as we're saying is that God's timing is not like our timing. If I go before God praying for something, in my own understanding and in my own knowledge and in my own desires and human nature, I would like it maybe to happen within a very short period. There's no one who wants to wait for a certain thing that you have prayed to God for a year or 2 or 3. We want it to happen sudden. We want it to be instant. But God knows us better. That's why at times He knows. If at all you need a certain thing, if at all you've prayed for a certain thing, if I give you maybe after months, maybe this and this might happen. Maybe you need it more after a year or 2. Because God's timing is the best. It might not be the best in our own human nature, in our own human looking. But before the eyes of God, it's the best. We get like to read the story of Lazarus. And for us who know about this story, Lazarus had a very good relation with Jesus. And it got to a time that Lazarus became ill. And the sister to Lazarus, they knew that Jesus had the capability of healing. And Jesus was his friend. And they called upon him and they told him, come, Lazarus is ailing, come and heal him. And you know what? Jesus never went to heal Lazarus immediately. Lazarus was his friend. He knew very well by him going, he would be able to heal Lazarus. But he waited until when Lazarus died. By the time he was going to Lazarus' place, Lazarus had already died. And not just healing, he raised him from the sleep. He raised him from the dead. And how could we have known that Jesus was able to raise people from the dead if at all he didn't wait for Lazarus to die? Well, what could we be reading in the scriptures of most of the miracles that Jesus did? I don't think maybe raising the dead would be one of the miracles if at all he didn't wait for Lazarus to die so that he can be raised. And now it was recorded in books. Maybe if he was just healed, it wouldn't be recorded in books. It wouldn't be an encouraging story that we get to read about. But it was not the best time. At that point, he was sick in bed. It was not the best time. The best time was when he was dead. That's how at times God's timing looks like. We get to read a story of someone like Sarah. Sarah, who got to have a son when she was too old. And as we read, even when the angel came to tell her that she's going to have a son, she even laughed because she was like, how? At my age. But you see, that was the best chosen time. We see Sarah and Abraham, they had gotten to a point that they had even gotten into terms that maybe they'll never have a kid. And even Abraham went ahead to have a son with Haggai, who was one of his maid servants. They had gotten to a point that they had even made peace with not having a child. But it was not yet God's timing. And we get to read that Isaac, who was the son to Abraham, he got to be blessed, and the entire generation is blessed of Isaac. Because the best time, the God's time was not yet. It wasn't yet God's time. They tried their way. It's like they even lost hope in God. And they felt like, we getting old, years are passing by. I think it's good you go have a child with Haggai. That's what we also do in our lives. Because even in the story of Lazarus, the sister to Lazarus, they were so annoyed and they were like, Jesus, why did you take so long? Why did you overstay? We called you when Lazarus was in bed. Why did you wait until he died? Why did you overstay? Yeah, it's the human nature. We always feel like God has really overstayed. It's now time. You will even be like, if it has gotten to this point, there is no need of even now God coming through. But God is always full of surprises. That's why they thought that Lazarus dying was the end of it. To their surprise, our God is able even to raise people from the dead. He had to show them that him dying is not yet an issue. This moment, because it's my timing, I'm able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond whatever you ever think of. That's why someone like Sarah gave birth at an old age, because that was when God's timing came to be. That's how God's timing at times is so unpredictable. He just comes in his own godly way, and he just do things in his own godly manner. That's why at times you'll feel that if at all God has not come in your situation, things will get worse. Even when they are worse, God will still bring something that will flourish in that point that you feel it's worse. Because even when Lazarus was dead, God has had still to appear. Even when Sarah was old, God had to still appear. We get rid of someone like Hannah, who was really mocked even by the co-wife Penina. Yani, she was called a barren. To some point, maybe even she had believed that she is a barren. But the good thing is that she was always in the house of the Lord. She was always seeking God. She was always there crying to God. Because she knew that it's never yet if God has not said so. That's what we do most of the times. We say it's over and God has not yet said it's over. We say it's done and God has not yet said it's done. It doesn't matter how worse your situation is. Yeah, Lazarus was dead. That's how worse the situation was for Lazarus. I don't think you've gotten to that point that you're not dead. Yeah, you're still alive. It is just situations that are worse. Yeah, even in that point that Hannah was, in God's appointed time, God gave Hannah a son. Yes, after dwelling in his house, calling upon God and waiting upon the Lord, he still came. Because our God, as I always say, is always very just. And in his God chosen time, he always comes. He always comes. He says that he is never man that he can lie. Either is he a son of man that he says that he'll do and he fails to do. Most of the times that we trouble ourselves so much, most of the times there are times we get so much bothered. We lose hope. We lack patience, not knowing that there is a God-appointed time. Yes, we read in the book of Ecclesiastes that, and it's a word at times that we love saying so much, and I don't know whether we ever get to think about it and get a deeper revelation of it. The word tells us that in his own chosen time, he makes things beautiful. He beautifies things in his own chosen time. Yes, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how worse your situation is. If he says it's today, it will be today. Yes, because in his chosen time, we get rid of someone like Moses. Moses was born in a time when when firstborns were being killed, when you get to read about the story of Moses, and he had to be hidden, and after being hidden, he was picked and taken into the palace. And to the palace, he got that the person who was given the responsibility of bringing was a relative to him. And do you think that things had just to happen? God was not involved in all that. There's no way things could just go in such kind of manner. Maybe if God was not into that entire issue of Moses being hidden and all that, maybe where he was hidden, he could have been found and he would have been killed. But God had to ensure that things had to fall up in a certain lineup, to a point that he had to get to the Paris. And after getting to the Paris, he had to have a caregiver who knew him and who knew very well that this was a child that was hidden. And he really brought him so well, like maybe the mother would do. That's how at times we get to trouble ourselves so much. And God has a plan for us. God has a timeline for us. He knows this will start, this will follow, this will follow. But at times we doubt. At times we are not obedient. God will tell us, the Holy Spirit will convict us to do this, but you feel no. You want to go your way. You want to follow a different route. How I wish that we all had this thing of knowing that in God's chosen time, He makes things beautiful. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is. In His best time, imagine it should be beautiful. It was ugly when people are wailing and crying for Lazarus, saying, why did Jesus take long? But when He came, after He was raised from the dead, he is now not sick, He is now not dead, He is back to life. Things became beautiful. God is a really beautifier of things. What we do is at times we are not patient to wait upon Him. Because I know there are most of us at times, you have seeked God for a job for too long. And you now to a point of losing hope because you feel everyone who maybe you graduated with, everyone who maybe you schooled with, they are now in good jobs and such like. But imagine their timing is not your timing. Because we are talking about God's timing. The timing that maybe the mindset of or the timing that maybe you have in your mind is that because so and so, my colleagues, my classmates, my classmates, they are now working, they are now at a certain point, and you feel like now you are out of your timeline. That is your timeline. But what about God's timeline? Maybe all your age mates by now they are married, and you keep on complaining to God. And you keep on asking God, why are you not married? Imagine it's not yet time. In His own time, He'll make things beautiful. Yeah, you might be there at times. Maybe you married. It's now years. You have not even gotten a child. And in our own mindset, in our own timeline, we know that after you get married a year or two, you need to have a firstborn. That's the human nature. That's the human timeline. What about God's timeline? Because God's timeline is never determined by anything. You know, both that you're not troubled. That at times people are calling you barren and such. Like, you're not the first. Hannah was called a barren. Sarah was called a barren. But in God's chosen time, He made things beautiful. They were called mothers. They had the cry of the fruit of their womb. Your mom there, you feel like it's getting lost. You feel like you're now giving up. God will make things beautiful in His own chosen time. It doesn't matter when. That one should not be your issue. Your issue would be, am I waiting upon this God? Am I looking forward unto that God's chosen time? Yes. There are so many things at times we are losing hope about. There are so many things at times we have prayed God to give us. And we feel God who should have done it like yesterday, but he hasn't done. And he will remain to be God. Because we say in good and in bad times, he remains to be God. And he does things in his own chosen time. Because one thing I always say is that he knows us very well. And for glory and honor of his name, he has to be God, divine as he is. That's why at times you'll see a mom, that's why you'll see at times you married, you don't have a child, and there's an 18, 17-year-old girl who just indulges in early premarital sex and she gets pregnant. And you get to ask yourself, how? You were in marriage, but you're trying to get a child, but you can't. There's a young girl there who is still in school, and she gets pregnant. That pregnancy really troubles her. She cannot be able to continue with her studies. That's how God is, as divine as he is. And when at times we get to understand how God works and how he is, how divine he is, how at times unpredictable he is, we'll stop being bothered by some of these things of life. We'll get to know that this life is spiritual. That's why these things happens to this person today and this one happens to this person tomorrow. That's why it will be on a particular day. There's someone who is mourning somewhere and there's someone who is having merry somewhere. When someone is getting promoted, there's another one who is getting demoted. When someone is being born somewhere, there are another family that is losing a loved one somewhere. Because he is God. And he does things in accordance to his own existence, in accordance to his own wisdom. And we can never fathom his doings. And I just wish we get to understand how God works. And it will ease some of these burdens that we carry. It will ease some of these worries that at times we have. Because we are so troubled at times. We are so bothered. And as it tells us in the book of Ecclesiastes, he makes things beautiful in his own chosen time. It doesn't matter how people are telling you, oh, so you have gotten old and you have not gotten married. That's their timeline. Always have that confidence within you. It's not yet God's time. They are telling you it's now 10 years of marriage, it's now 5 years of marriage, you don't have a firstborn. That's them. That's their own timeline. You're working on God's timeline. Yes. They are telling you, oh, Sujuanga, by now you should have achieved this, you should be having this. That's their own timeline. Your confidence and your stand is, I'm going as per God's timeline. And in God's timeline, we are never in a hurry. We always go step by step as God is leading us. Let's have this confidence. Whatever comes, whatever does not come, whatever we pray and God does, whatever we feel like it's taking long, we always know that it's happening in God's timeline. So in this life, when you feel like God is taking too long, the only thing that I will urge us to always to pray more, seek him more, read his words and get to understand him more and more. Get to know more about his existence and how he does things. Read of stories of people in the Bible, the kind of Akina Zechariah and Elizabeth, the kind of Jacob. Get to read about these characters of the Bible, the kind of Akina Job, the experiences they had with God. Read the word more and get encouraged more. Get to hear of these men of God who really waited upon the Lord, who at times thought that situations are working, who at times felt like things are not working good for them. We get rid of someone like Joseph. How Joseph became a reader and how Joseph came to read an entire nation, and at times his brothers thought that they are doing him wrong. They thought that selling him out, at times they are like, they didn't love him and such like. They felt that that is the worst thing they are doing to him. To their surprise, they were uplifting him. They were taking him to the place where glory would be seen in him. And at times, if we learn to be patient on God's journey, at times, or on the journey that God is taking us, it doesn't matter at times wherever He tries to pass us through. But if we become patient and we become obedient, He has a plan for us. We might at times walk through the valley. We might at times walk through places where they are even worrying. To some point, you feel like it's not the best experience you could have wished. And as I always say, the desert, might take you through a desert that you will not enjoy or either be glad being in it. But at the red rank, there's something that He is preparing you for. There's something that He is preparing you for. And if you give up as early as now, you will not get to His timeline. You will not get to his timing. So it doesn't matter how hard the desert has been. Imagine we have to endure. It doesn't matter how situations have become. We have to endure. It doesn't matter how people have named us and they have termed us as. We might have been called names, yes. Don't mind. We're just in the wilderness. Our purpose is God's timing. Our purpose is just to endure and get to His timing. So in whichever situation you are in, when at times you feel like you have waited for so long, pray more, seek His word more. And the third one is total surrender. Surrender totally unto Him. It's not a time of complaint. It's not a time at times of neglecting God. It's not a time at times of giving up. It's a time of total surrender. Total surrender. You pray, you get to read His word, and you totally surrender unto Him. And with those three, at times you not realize how His time has come so sudden. Yes. Because one thing that I always say, if at all you want even to get to know about God's timing and how at times the plans He has for us and such like, you have to be in His will. You have to be committed to His commands. You have to live as per His purpose onto our lives. That's the only secret at times it will be very easy at times to just walk in God's timing. We will not miss any of His timeline. Because most of the times when, as God is walking with us in His timeline, we miss to some point. And at times it drags us behind. Because there are to some point we just lost hope. To some point we lost track. And we just went into our own ways and we just tried to solve solutions our way, and we lose it at that. So it's a point emerging, all of us, whichever situation you are at, whichever point you are at in this life, it doesn't matter whatever people have said, it doesn't matter whatever people have told you. Let your mind always get to remind you that my purpose and what I'm looking up to is God's timeline. I'm just aligning myself in God's timing. It might take long, yes, but in His own chosen time, He makes things beautiful. And when you have this confidence, imagine you not be worried. You'll never be worried about anything. Either you're married, either you're not. Either you have children, either you don't have. Either you have a job, either you will never be troubled. Because in one or another, you know what? You have trusted upon the Lord, and in His own timing, He'll make things beautiful. Why can't we just let life to flow in His own ways, to flow in His own timeline? Because as the word tells us in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, in His own God-chosen time, He'll make things beautiful. Yes, He will make everything beautiful. And thank you so much for your time. It was just that for today. Until next time, bye bye. Love you.